For this Riley Sager ranking video, I have a mixed bag of ratings. I have 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, and even a DNF. So let's just get on into it and hear all that I have to say. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Nakia. Welcome to my channel. So I have officially gone through all of Riley Sager's books, so I can now do my ranking video. And it shall be interesting. I feel like most people's rankings are pretty similar, except for like the middle is where I feel like it gets a little bit interesting. So I don't know. Let's see where I fall. I do know I already have some unpopular opinions. So like I said, let's just get into it. Now, in case you're new here, I do not have physical copies of these books. I either borrow my books from the library or I get them on my Kindle. So again, I don't have the books in front of me, but I have lots of notes that I've taken on all of these books. I've even gone back over some of my reviews. If you haven't seen them, I will try to link them below for the ones that I've done. And so, yeah, I feel like I know where I stand and my ratings and things still stay the same. So let's just talk about it. Let me put this down. Now, at the very bottom of the list comes, I feel, my unpopular opinion. I don't know, you tell me in the comments, but it seems like this was a lot of people's favorites. And so I was actually looking forward to it, even though the subgenre of slashers is not my thing. But again, I knew a lot of people loved it, so I was looking forward to it. So you already know I'm speaking of Final Girls. Now, short and sweet, in case you don't know, this book follows a woman who survived a massacre, killing, what have you, and she is now a final girl. Her story, you know, she made it into the news, she's a little bit popular, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out that she finds out about like 2, 3 other women who are also final girls, something like that. One of them turns up dead, and then another final girl shows up at her door and is like, we need to figure out what happened to her because I don't think she killed herself, which is what the news reports. And so then there's supposed to be a mystery of what happened to the final girl who ends up dead, suicide or murder. We don't know. So, like I said, I'm not a fan of slashers, so I went into this like, okay, I hope this doesn't get too gruesome and dark, which it did not. And that was probably my problem. I was bored. I did not care for the main character. I just wasn't a fan of hers, and it just took too long for things to get going. I preferred the flashbacks to where we were getting bits and pieces of what happened to her the day that these murders happened and she survived. So I was more intrigued by that, her regular life and just her going out and going to work and hanging out with her boyfriend and stuff like that. I was bored. And when the other final girl, Sam, showed up, I didn't like her. And again, then it just turned into like this buddy friendship story that I just didn't care about because I was like, why are you keeping Sam around? She's weird. She's doing things, causing you problems. I don't understand this situation. So unfortunately, I DNF'd this on page 86. Now you may say, how can you rate this if you don't even know what happened? Oh, but I do. Whenever I DNF a book and it's a thriller, I always go look up the spoilers because I want to know what I missed. Did I miss anything or not? And when I found out what the plot twist was, I was like, I'm glad I DNF'd it. I do feel as though if I had finished the book, I may have put something lower than this, but because it was a DNF, it has to go at the very bottom. So let's move on to the one above it. Next up, we have his newest release, The House Across the Lake. If you missed the live show discussion for the Literally Dead Book Club, wearing the shirt, this was on Kayla's channel, Books and Lala. I will link it below because we go into all the spoilers and things like that. But spoiler alert, I gave this one 1.5. I'm going to round it up to 2 on Goodreads, but for Storygraph and BookTube, it's 1.5. Now, I said in that discussion that I would have DNF'd this book if I wasn't reading it for the book club discussion because it just dragged for me. But let me back it up, tell you a little bit quick what it's about. We are with this woman named Casey, who is an actress, and she's basically falling apart. Her husband drowned in the lake at her family's lake house, and she's just been miserable. She's been drinking herself into stupors. So her mom sends her to the lake house to get herself together. When she gets to the lake house, she finds someone drowning and she rescues her. It turns out to be this woman named Catherine, who's a supermodel, and she lives in the house across the lake. And so they start chit-chatting, strike up a bit of a friendship quickly, and Catherine goes missing, and then Casey starts to believe that her husband had something to do with it, and there starts the mystery. A lot of people were like, this better not be one of those usual, you know, mysteries of someone watching the other person. They're the unreliable narrator. I probably wish that was the case. It would have been fine for me because I enjoy Riley Sager's writing. I loved the atmosphere he created with the lake, and it was fall. I did not know that. It was a pleasant surprise. It would have been nice to have read this during fall season. For me, it started off kind of slow. I was bored with the two women. Seems to be a theme for my books at the bottom. I didn't really care for either one of them, and they were just chit-chatting about being a supermodel, being an actress, and I was like, I do not care. To me, it picked up around page 38, and that's when we found out about her husband and what happened with her husband, Casey, the main character. So after that, I thought it was interesting. And to me, once she started spying on her neighbor and looking at her through the binoculars, I was entertained. I was all here for it. So as I was going along, I was like, it's not that bad. What is everybody talking about? Why are the reviews so bad? I don't get it. I'm enjoying it. And then I got to the plot twists. And that is where the book fell apart for me. Now, not necessarily right when the plot twist happened, because I was kind of like, okay, that's where we're going with this. I guess I'm along for the ride. But it was just the explanations for the plot twists, and then the ridiculousness that followed, the dialogue that was coming out of people's mouths, and things that happened. It was just, and then it was other twists that came along after that, and it just got more ridiculous, more like, this one was not for me. As I said, I gave it 1.5 stars. This to me would be my worst if I didn't DNF Final Girls, but I just, like I said, just no. I hope his next one is better than this, because this wasn't it for me. Let's move on. Next up for me is another unpopular opinion, because this is another one that people love. So I was so looking forward to this one. Like I said, so many people said this was the best of his books and that the plot twist was just amazing. So I was like, oh, I can't wait. Hopefully I feel the same way. Talking about The Last Time I Lied. I have talked about this in my wrap up, so you can go check that out. I believe I talked about it in my June wrap up. I think I will try to link it below if I remember. This one is about a woman named Emma who, when she was a teenager, she was at this summer camp and she was sharing a cabin with 3 other young ladies, and they vanished. We fast forward to her as an adult. She's still wrestling with what happened to those women. The camp shut down and everything. It was a whole bunch of mess. And so she's now working at an art gallery. She's an artist. And the woman who owned the camp shows up at the art gallery and tells her she's going to reopen the camp to try to revive it and, you know, erase the bad memories. And she wants her to come back as a camp counselor to teach art to the young ladies. And at first she's like, no, I can't go back there. But then she decides she wants to go back and try to solve the mystery of what happened to those girls. So she agrees to go. So of course, this book is about what happened to those 3 girls. And Emma is the last one who saw them alive. I was very intrigued by this premise. And what I liked that Riley Sager did is his usual. He had 2 different timelines. We were going in between the present with Emma at the camp as an adult, and she's now working with some other teenagers. So it was, you know, things going on with them. And we get flashbacks of what happened to her when she was at the camp when she was a teenager, which we learned she was 13. This comes into play with some of my issues with the book, but let's continue. And this kept me intrigued. It had short chapters, which I love. So it would always leave off on some kind of cliffhanger. So I was flipping pages wanting to know what happened next. And then my issues came along. I just found some things problematic with this book. The fact that Emma, our main character, was 13 when she was at the camp. It would have been fine if we did not get things happening with her and a 19-year-old boy. It's not appropriate. Then there was also things dealing with her sexuality, her coming into her sexuality, her getting her period for the first time. And I was just like, as a grown man, Riley Sager, writing about this, I just didn't understand why. Now, it was brought to my attention later that people believed Riley Sager was a woman back then when Last Time I Lied came out. So maybe that just didn't register to people. But for me, in 2022, I know that he's a grown man, and I just didn't like it. And that was a big part of the book about her and the 19-year-old boy. And I just didn't like it. And so that it just grossed me out. And I was ready to DNF it at that point, but I was just so intrigued to find out what happened to these girls. How could they have vanished? The police searched for them and everything. And I was just like, what could it have been? And when we found out what it was, I could have thrown the book across the room. I was just like, are you kidding me? I stuck around for this. I just was not happy with the plot twist. It just was meh for me. I didn't care about the people that were involved, the reasoning. I just didn't care about any of the ending. I didn't like it. So yeah, between the stuff that I thought was inappropriate and gross and the ending, it just was, I'm sorry, didn't care for it. So like I said, 2 stars towards the bottom, not the bottom, but if it wasn't for House Across the Lake, this would have been probably bottom 2. So it got a little lucky. Let's move on to the next one. Next up, we have Home Before Dark. I'm sorry. I know this was a lot of people's favorites. It did get bumped up because some of these other ones were just not that great for me. But I think my problem with this is that people just sold this as it was one of the scariest books. Being a horror movie lover, and I've read a few horror books here and there. I got a few under my belt. It takes a lot to scare me. And so that was part of my problem, but let me tell you what it's about in case you don't know. So in Home Before Dark, we have two characters, Maggie and her dad. I believe his name was Ewan. And he wrote a book about his experiences at this house that they had and how they had all these paranormal things that happened, and it became like a bestseller. And he passed away, leaves the house to Maggie, and she's like has a business where she restores homes or construction, something like that. Anyway, she reluctantly goes back to this house because some bad things happened to her. The things that happened to her are part of the book. And so she begrudgingly goes back to the house. And her other thing is just like, my dad was lying. All this stuff did not happen the way he said it happened. So there's a mystery of what actually happened at this house. Was it haunted? Was it not? And once again, we have two timelines. We also have two different points of view because in the past, we're getting the dad's point of view and his side of the story and the things he wrote in the book. And in the present, we're getting the daughter Maggie, her being in the house in the present day, and also reliving some of the things that happened to her. So like I said, my problem was that I went into this thinking it was going to be scary. They did a pretty good job with some of the atmosphere and creating some tension, some creepiness. But for me, this book was just so slow and boring for me. I ended up having to switch to the audiobook. I switched around the 70% mark because my other thing was that I was getting confused between the daughter and the dad because they were going through pretty much the exact same things. And the only way you could tell the difference was in the book. He changed the font between the two different time periods. But I mean, if you're just quickly flipping, you would be like, wait, what? Who's this? And the audiobook had two different narrators, which was super helpful. There was a woman and a man. So that helped. But it was a little bit too late. I also did not like the daughter, Maggie. She was just so grumpy. Her whole thing of, I don't want to be here. My dad's a liar. I just didn't care for her. I liked him because he was excited about the house when we had the flashbacks and when they got there. And even when things started happening, he was kind of just like, a little bit tickled because it was a haunted house situation. Like I said, it was just hard for me to stick with her side of the story. But for me, it picked up around the 80% mark. And then I was just all in, but it was a little bit too late. And to me, I enjoyed all the plot twists that came at the end. The only thing was that there were a lot of characters involved. So you would have had to take notes to remember everybody and how they connected and all that. But that's what I liked. And I was like, this is the Riley Sager I like and that I'm used to. I'm sorry, unpopular opinion. I don't like when he mixes paranormal with his mystery thrillers. I just don't think he has business in that, trying to do that. I like when he creates creepy atmosphere, but like I said, trying to bring in horror elements, paranormal, it's not his thing, in my opinion. So yeah, that just didn't work for me. So if it was more of just a thriller aspect and the pacing was quicker, I would have enjoyed this much more. So at the end of the day, I thought it was fine. It was nothing spectacular. So I gave it 2.5 stars and I believe I rounded it up to 3 for Goodreads. So like I said, this is in the middle for me. It's not the worst, not the best, but before I had read Final Girls and The Last Time I Lied, it was definitely the worst for me thus far. So let's get into the top 2. That looks like 4. So top 2. All right. My second favorite Riley Sager book, and favorite I use loosely because this is not a favorite thriller mystery for me at all. But as far as Riley Sager, it's still one of the ones I had the most fun with, and it's Survive the Night. I feel like all my opinions are unpopular, except probably my number 1 spot, which at this point you've already figured it out. But I had fun with it. That's where my ranking comes from. But let me get into it. So in Survive the Night, we are following a young lady named Charlie who is away at college, and there happens to be a campus killer on the loose. Her roommate that she was really close with was killed by the campus killer, and so she's just really having a hard time with the grief, and she is just ready to get away from campus and get out of there because everybody's watching her and everything. They knew that she was staying with her, and she's tired of it. And so she wants to leave. It's the middle of the semester. Her boyfriend is like, if you just wait a couple weeks, I can take you. And she's like, no, I got to get the hell out of here now. So this book takes place in like the 80s, I believe, or early 90s. And so she has to go place a notice up on the bulletin board that she's looking for someone to give her a ride home. So someone responds to the ad, a man named Josh. He says, I'm going that way. I can take you. And she's like, okay. She does tell her boyfriend she's going to check in with him on the road and, give him a signal in case things are not going right. She decides to go for the ride. When she gets in the car, some things happen. They have conversations that lead her to believe he could be the campus killer. And then she has to figure out how she can survive the night. That's where the title comes in. So like I said, I had fun with this book. It kept me entertained. The very beginning, I was a little bit annoyed with the main character because she just kept on about her roommate dying and her grief. And I was kind of like, okay, I don't want to hear this woman go on and on about the grief she's dealing with. I didn't sign up for that. But that didn't last too long, thank goodness. And once she got into the car with Josh, to me, it was just so suspenseful, a page turner because of the whole close quarters, her being stuck in the car with him. It was just so many tense moments, and I was just on the edge of my seat throughout the whole book. What were my problems, you may ask? Once again, for Riley Sager, with a lot of these books, things can fall apart with the plot twist. Now, a lot of people's issues with this book was that she just kept making stupid mistakes. First of all, in the synopsis, you already know she's making a mistake that doesn't seem too bright. She's getting in the car with some man she don't know when there's a campus killer on the loose. So if you sign up for that, you gotta go along for the ride. I was already here for that. And I'm weird. I like to be frustrated with characters because it just gives me an experience I won't forget. I love to be fussing at them. You know how they have those clips of movies and movie theaters where somebody's in there like, don't go that way, girl. Don't do that. To me, it makes it more fun. So I like that part. I like that I was frustrated with her and I was like, oh my goodness, I was getting a reaction. So I like that. I wasn't bored. But then when we get closer to the plot twist, just some of her decisions were just kind of like, why are you? And I was like, okay, we're going along for the ride. Then when we get the first plot twist, I was like, this doesn't really make sense. The person that was involved, I can't say anything because I don't want to give away a spoiler, but what was told to us about this person just didn't make sense with things they were doing. That's all I'm going to say. And so I was like, okay, going along for this ride. And then we get another plot twist where we do find out who the campus killer is. And it was just kind of like, okay. This also is one where there's a small cast of characters, so you probably can figure it out by process of elimination. And so that wasn't necessarily my issue. It was just this thing of where once that person reveals their motive and things, it was just a little bit like, yes, and I did it for these reasons. Just got ridiculous. And then we get to like the epilogue. And I know this is what ruined the book for a lot of people. It didn't ruin it for me, but I was just kind of like, that's odd. Okay. And then there's another thing that is told to us at the end that it kind of explains some of the things that I had issues with, and that made it a little bit better, but also I was a little bothered. So I was conflicted, but I did not hate this book. Like I said, the main reason I gave it 3 stars is because I had a good time with it. I had fun. I was never bored. As I said, it was a tense ride for me, and I won't forget the experience I had. And every time I think about it, I just kind of chuckle because, like I said, I had fun with it. So there you have it. And let's move into my #1 spot, which you already know by now. All right. In the top spot, we have Lock Every Door. This, of course, is my favorite Riley Sager book. I am lucky that this was the first Riley Sager book I ever read. It was actually the first thriller book I had read in a long time. In case you don't know this, I have said this many times, but I just started getting back into reading at the end of 2020, and I found out about this book, picked it up and loved it. And then I decided I wanted to try to review books and talk about books on BookTube. So this is why you have my channel. So like I said, no pressure, but I mean, hey, something could beat this out. It still could. Riley Sager could still redeem himself, but there are big shoes to fill. So let's talk about what it's about. In Lock Every Door, we are following a young lady named Jules, who is just down on her luck. A lot of things are not going right for her. She needs to move out of her apartment that she was sharing with her boyfriend because they broke up. And so she doesn't really have a lot of money. I don't think she has a job from what I remember. And she sees an ad for an apartment sitter at this well-known building in Manhattan called the Bartholomew. So she goes to apply, and when she gets there, you know, the woman's a little strange. She tells her, you can't have visitors, you can't bother the other tenants, you can't stay anywhere else overnight, you can't post any pictures or anything of the building. A little odd, but she's desperate. So she agrees and she gets the job. So when she gets there, she's all, you know, like, oh, this is nice, but you should know if something seems too good to be true, it probably is, darling. She meets another apartment sitter who lives there, a young lady named Ingrid, and she tells her, look, there's some strange things going on here. And of course, after she tells her that, Ingrid goes missing. So then Jules have to try to figure out what happened to her and what is going on in this building. So what I enjoyed about this book was that he created so much suspense and atmosphere. I loved the gothic feel of the Bartholomew apartment. It's supposed to be this older building with like the wrought iron elevator gates you have to pull and things like that, and gargoyles outside the building. I could just see it all. I really liked the main character, Jules. I did, have an issue with her taking this job, but again, he painted a picture for us that she was desperate for money. I appreciated that. I did like Ingrid as well. Like I said, I was here for it. And then when things are going on with these neighbors, you're like, what is going on here? Everybody's weird. In this case, it made sense for her to be investigating what happened with Ingrid because she lives there and she's also an apartment sitter. So she needs to know what happened to Ingrid so she makes sure it doesn't happen to her. And at the same time, she was concerned about why did Ingrid go missing. Now, I was not the biggest fan of the plot twist. Once it got close to being revealed, I kind of saw it coming. And I forgot to say, we also have 2 timelines in Riley Sager fashion, but this one has like a countdown because we get the present day where it seems as though Jules is in the hospital. And then we are getting flashbacks that start like 5 days earlier or 6 days earlier or something like that. And it counts down to get us to how she got to the hospital. So like I said, I was just like on the edge of my seat. Short chapters. Again, so I could not wait to find out what was going to happen every single chapter. So like I said, I had a different plot twist in mind, but I was rooting for that one. So the one that we got, I was kind of like, okay. Once again, I didn't really care about the people that were involved with this plot twist, but I went along for the ride and I actually really enjoyed the ending. That's all I'm going to say because I don't want to give any spoilers. So I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said, I only took off a star because I wasn't exactly happy with the plot twist, but it still was entertaining. And the romance part I could have done without, but I understand why it was there. So anyway, like I said, favorite Riley Sager of all time so far. And it is also one of my favorite thriller books, period. So there you have it, my ranking of all my Riley Sager books that I've read. Please feel free to let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. I'm sure we have some differing opinions. I've seen other people's rankings and I disagree with them. So this is all in good fun. Again, reading is subjective. What one person enjoys, someone else hates. So like I said, let me know in the comments if you want me to do a separate video explaining how I review my books, because again, you see some of my reviews have to do with my feelings while I was reading the book. If it was just entertaining and it was good enough for me. Yeah, like I said, I thought this was fun and I finally got it out there. Now, will I read the next Riley Sager book? I do not know. He was an auto-buy author for me. I bought Survive the Night as soon as it came out. I bought House Across the Lake as soon as it came out. I believe same with Home Before Dark. This next one, I'm going to hold my coins and wait to see what the people are saying in the streets because I just don't know at this point. He's in the middle for me now. He used to be one of my favorite thriller writers. Now I'm kind of like, I still have fun with his book for the most part, but again, right now he's just in the middle. So anyway, that wraps up this video. Ways you can support my channel are always linked below. I will also have links to all of these books that I talked about. Oh, and I forgot to say, if you don't have a comment and you just want to let me know that you made it this far in the video and, show me some love, you can leave me a key emoji for Lock Every Door, since it was the favorite of the list. And that is all for this video. So until next time, snuggle up in your hideaway with a good book like Lock Every Door. Unplug as much as possible. Be kind to all kind, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.